I'm so happy that the Traitors US season is back, and this is my review of season 4, episodes 4 and 5. I'm so happy as well that we're getting some craziness, some funny moments. I watch Traitors for the drama and the mess. It's not all about the competition and the strategy for me. I want to see my favorite personalities put in a different setting and see how they maneuver. And episode 4 and 5, I enjoyed them. I had a great time watching them. I like them better than episodes 1, 2, and 3 because I'm getting to know people and getting a feel for more of their personalities. And now we're starting to see a lot of the wheels turn and a lot of the strategizing happening. I am a little disappointed about the secret traitor storyline falling apart. One thing about traitors that I've always thought would make the show a bit more enticing is if there was a little bit of mystery for the viewers. Obviously, we know who's a traitor and who's a faithful, but it is fun when you're watching a show and you don't always know who to trust. So I like the concept of a secret traitor and even keeping it secret from the audience for a few weeks. So seeing Donna go home and that whole storyline fall apart was disappointing because the rumors are that they had a lot planned for that secret traitor role, and those things fell apart obviously because Donna was banished. It does make me question, if they had so much planned, why didn't they just choose one more secret traitor? Why didn't they choose someone and serve it up and say, hey, do you want this opportunity? So I'm not too clear on the producer's logic with that. If they really wanted the secret traitor storyline to come to fruition, it feels like they had opportunities to make that happen. And I don't recall who made this comment. I believe it was someone on the show who recognized part of picking out traitors is thinking like a producer, because this is still a TV show. So you have to think, if I'm a producer of this show, who would I want to be a traitor to give the best entertainment? And that is 100% a part of the producer's thought process. They don't choose the traitors at random. They think about this from the perspective of entertainment value. So I think it's smart that look at it through the lens of who is choosing the traitors instead of simply thinking about people's behavior. And if you think about it through that lens, well, it's clear that you would suspect someone like Michael Rappaport. I would think immediately if they cast him, they're going to know that he'd bring drama and that he's very likely to be chosen as a traitor. In this case, he wasn't, which was surprising. And I would think that they would also choose a gamer. I believe this is the first year they haven't chosen anyone to be a traitor who came from a competition show. So it's not a foolproof method, but it certainly makes a lot of sense to think about it that way instead of only suspecting people based off their behavior. In episode 4, we see the traitors Lisa, Candiace, and Rob choose to murder Caroline Stanberry from the Real Housewives of Dubai. And this is why I love having Real Housewives and Bravo celebrities on these shows, because you would not have gotten such a funny murder scene at that tree if you didn't have Caroline and Lisa. I'll definitely say Lisa was carrying in that scene. It just was very funny to me to see them go and quote unquote murder her. And then the back and forth about I'll see you at BravoCon, and Lisa's like, you won't. I loved it. It was funny. That is why I watch Traitors. It's such a funny and entertaining show in addition to the gameplay that we see. It was a smart strategy for Candiace and Lisa to say, let's kill Caroline Stanberry. I do believe it will deflect some suspicion from housewives being traitors, because the assumption is that all the housewives will stick together and they're never going to banish or murder one another. So it was smart to essentially sacrifice Caroline. Hopefully that will not bite them in the butt in terms of being able to maintain power within the castle, but also get votes in the case that they need it. But it's early in the game, so it makes sense to go ahead and murder a housewife. And the traitors have done a good job of making all of their selected people random. There's no clear thread or trend there, and I think that's smart. In these last 2 episodes, we did have some really funny moments. I did love the fact that Eric was smart enough to pay attention to every single thing when he was almost murdered by the traitors. Yes, he was wrong about the laugh, but he was really smart in bringing up the laugh at the round table. It was so smart. And the fact that he held it, that is the best way to protect yourself. If you suspect someone of being a traitor, you need to tell multiple people and never just one. So to me, it was a great strategy for him to drop that card at the round table. It also gave us excellent drama. I was on the edge of my seat wondering, oh my God, because Candiace to me is very giggly and does have a distinctive laugh. So I was like, oh my God, not my girl Candy out the girl. I was so worried that Candiace was laughing in the murder, and Eric really hurt her laugh. Eric's strategy was very smart from a gameplay standpoint to drop that nugget at the table. Yes, he was wrong, but that was the best way to do it to protect himself. And also, it gave us good drama. It made for an excellent scene. The Roundtable was great, and partially due to Eric and his wonky ears. Seeing Tiffany's banishment in episode 4 of the Traitors really made me question, if people are already suspicious of you, can you survive a roundtable when you're in the hot seat? This roundtable was great. I'm happy we're getting entertaining roundtables. Obviously, the back and forth between Tiffany and Jam Jam and also Tiffany and Colton was great TV. But it's clear that Colton, as well as some other people, came to that round table. They were already planning to target Tiffany. And watching how she moved at that round table and thinking about how other people at round tables over past seasons have reacted, I don't know if there's a way to convince people you're faithful if they think you're a traitor at that particular table. I do believe that people can walk into the round table and not think you're a traitor and be convinced and then change their votes. But I think people show up to the round table and their minds are made up that no matter what you say, they're going to take your reaction as a sign you're a traitor. Whether you get overly defensive, they're going to say you're a traitor. Whether you seem relaxed and unbothered, they're going to think you're a traitor. So if you respond in a very aggressive manner, they're going to take that as a sign to confirm what they already believe about you. The roundtables make for excellent TV. I love the roundtables. They're so funny, they're juicy, they're enjoyable, but I don't think the roundtables ever sway people's opinions to save someone. I think the roundtables are always to the detriment of the person that's being targeted. The best way to avoid banishment is you have to know where people's heads are before they go in. If someone's coming for you, you have to start rounding up votes before you go in. That's the only way to avoid it, because I don't think the vast majority of people went to that round table thinking Tiffany was a traitor. But in the end, 15 out of the 18 voted for Tiffany to be banished. It's clear that they were easily convinced. I also believe there's this dynamic at the roundtables where people want to vote with the group. Many people go in, I think some of these faithfuls don't even have suspicions about who is a traitor and they don't know how to vote, especially because it's early in the game. So I believe when you have someone like Colton coming in who's very aggressive, pointing the finger, the same way Ron did to Portia, people are very quick to go along with, yeah, I'm going to vote for that person, even if they never walked in suspecting that person. So if I'm a faithful and I'm in the castle, my focus is going to be on going around the castle, figuring out where everyone's heads are at and seeing if I'm on anyone's list. Because once you're in that room, it feels like your fate is sealed, especially if you're the first name thrown out. We see that people feel very hesitant to throw out a name. I've seen some exit interviews where people have talked about it feels very stressful to be at the round table, and most people are very anxious about saying something. So if your name is the first one thrown out, it's a little hard to recover. The best thing you can do is focus on, before the round table, campaigning for yourself if someone does plan to throw your name out there, and start to sway people's opinions, because once you're in there, it feels like your fate is sealed. I don't believe there's a right or perfect way to play the round table if you are being accused. A lot of this game is luck and perception. So once you're in that hot seat, you don't even need to overthink what you're going to say and how you're going to maneuver, because I think your fate is already sealed before that person ever says your name there. The round table in episode 4 was so funny, and it reminds me of why I like to watch Traitors, because you get the strategy, the gameplay, but you get so much humor and entertainment. So Ron was smart in trying to get clues from the night before when he escaped being murdered by the Traitors. Obviously, he heard footsteps that were Candiace, that were not Maura. I don't know why he didn't pick up on the fact that Candiace is also a tiny woman. I guess that just shows how well Candiace is doing that he doesn't even suspect her. But obviously he's off the mark. And if you're unfamiliar with Maura, Maura has always had a mouth on her. Maura has never been someone that's going to bite her tongue. I wasn't shocked that she went at Ron so aggressively. That is very much what she gives. She's very confident. She's very outspoken. And also Ron is coming for her. I get it. I would react the same way if you're throwing out my name. The Tiffany Jam Jam exchange was very funny. I did not like seeing those two go at it because I did like both of them. But Tiffany saying, write my name down, and Jam Jam asking the producers, can I? I'm ready. Can I do it right now? How do you spell it? Very funny. I loved it. And Candiace crying was so on brand for Candiace. If you do not watch Real Housewives of Potomac and you don't know, Candiace is known for crying. She even has her own triangle because she would always take a napkin and fold it into a pointy triangle to use to dab her eyes. I hate that she didn't have that napkin there with her, but Candiace crying also was very genuine. One thing you cannot say about Candiace, even if you watched her on the show or on Real Housewives, You cannot say she is fake. And you cannot say that she does not look out for other women. Candiace, throughout her time on Potomac, was attacked unfairly, but Candiace never was someone who was on the offense. She never was the one to go after people, especially other women. And so I know she felt strongly about Tiffany staying. I think her and Tiffany were building a relationship. And also, Candiace, as another Black woman, does look out for other Black women, and she does feel the natural camaraderie that a lot of us feel. So I feel like her emotions were very genuine, and that's also why I love her. She has known Tiffany 2 or 3 days, maybe at the most, yet she has all of these emotions about her. But it does show like that she does have a good heart, and she wears her heart on her sleeve. Tiffany and Colton's back and forth. Colton was not ready for Tiffany. Ultimately, he prevailed. He got her banished, but he was not ready for the back and forth. He seemed nervous and anxious. Obviously, he's never been in this situation. Tiffany is a game player. She did very well in Big Brother. Colton seemed in over his head. Also because he didn't have anything to stand on. Colton was going after Tiffany purely because of his feelings. It's not like Portia, which Ron alleges she said these comments. With Tiffany, it was vibes. And I'm betting it was simply that him and Tiffany had not spent time together and got to know each other, so he automatically didn't trust her. I don't even know if he felt like it's because she's so smart. I felt like he accused her because he has a perception that she's sneaky and dishonest. So I hated to see her go, and I hated that it was the fact that Colton led the charge. But it's clear how easy it is to sway these people at the round table to vote someone out because everyone's just happy that they're not the one on the chopping block. Seeing the way that Monet handled her suspicions of Lisa Rinna and the way that Kristen is handling her suspicions of Colton makes me think of 3 strategies that more faithfuls should be implementing to further their odds of making it to the end. The first lesson is when you're suspicious of someone, be mindful of who you express that to and how. Monet's mistake was she was suspicious of Lisa, but she only told Candiace. And of course, Monet believed that Candiace was not a traitor, but she was wrong. And so Lisa and Candiace felt comfortable to murder Monet because they knew no one else knew Monet's suspicions about Lisa. If Monet had expressed her suspicions to 2 or 3 people in a small group at once, she would have more cover. Now, in the event that a traitor is a part of that conversation, the traitor recognizes that they will draw suspicion if they choose to murder you. The second strategy and lesson for the faithfuls is they have to move beyond just traitor hunting. The basic premise of this game is, yes, identify the traitors and get them out. But on a deeper level, you really need to start identifying who are trustworthy faithfuls. So Kristen is suspicious of Colton, and intuitively, she's correct because she should be suspicious of him. Yes, he's not a traitor. That does not mean he's trustworthy. Colton is unpredictable. He does not lead with facts. He is extremely biased. In addition to the fact that he's aggressive and he's narcissistic and he has a history of abusing women, Kristen's intuitions and instincts about Colton are spot on. And even though he's not a traitor, he's not someone you can trust in this game because you can't trust his moves and his behavior. He doesn't think logically, in addition to the fact that he will throw you under the bus. The faithfuls get too focused on finding the traitors instead of finding people who they can trust, that they want to go to the end with and that they think they can go to the end with. If you think about last season, we had a situation where people teamed up to get somebody out of the game so they didn't have to split the money at the very end. That is still something that could happen. You also want to consider, is this someone who won't be easily swayed by other people? Is this someone that I trust that actually trusts me and will have my back? So Kristen is correct in recognizing that Colton is not that person, even if he's not a traitor. I know she believes he's a traitor, but in my opinion, Colton is not someone, even if I think he's a faithful, that I want to keep in this castle because he puts me at risk. So more faithfuls need to start thinking, the faithfuls that I want in this game with me, that I want to be allied with, because assuming that everybody you think is a faithful is your ally is the wrong assumption, because they're not. And just because someone's a traitor doesn't mean they can't be your ally. They can't be your ally to the end, because if a traitor makes it to the end, they get the money and not you. But when you're early in the game, you have to start thinking, maybe I think they're a traitor, but I want to keep them close. Obviously, that was an idea that Tiffany had about Michael Rappaport. We saw Sandra from Survivor in her season have the exact same thing that she articulated, where she looks at it to say, this person is my ally. And yes, I think they're a traitor, but that also means they're not going to murder me. That is the way you have to think about it. You have to think a few layers deeper than just, are they a traitor? Are they a faithful? And the third lesson related to that is more strategic voting. I'll use the Michael Rapaport vote as an example where some people probably voted for him and they didn't think that he was a traitor, but they voted him out for other reasons, moral, ethical, value-based. But also, he was a good person to vote out, even if you didn't think he was offensive, because he's not trustworthy. He's unpredictable and you don't really know where you stand with him or what you're going to get. He's not a good ally in this game, even if you think he's a faithful. And more people need to start thinking about that when they're voting. Maybe that's not something you tell other people because you don't want people to get suspicious of your intentions, but in the back of your head, maybe you're okay if people turn their attention towards others if you also don't find that person trustworthy, even if you think they might be a faithful. Another smart move is maybe you think someone's a faithful, but you're going to vote them out because they have too much power. Again, I'm clearly on this train of why people should vote out Colton, but he's a prime example of you don't want anyone in the castle that's too powerful because one, that's a threat to you if they ever set their sights on you. And then two, you don't want someone in the castle that's too powerful because then that diminishes your power. So you can't just vote strictly on, I think you're a traitor. You don't articulate that to everyone else. You can say that in your confessional, but we do need to see more faithfuls play this way. And if they are actually playing this way, I hope production starts to showcase that. If we do have people who are thinking with that strategy on this season, I would love for production to let the audience in on that fact. Bravo fans and gamer fans need to stop fighting each other and refocus our energy on fighting the real enemy, which is the men of Bachelor Nation. Because every season, a man from The Bachelor comes in and acts a fool or irritates the heck out of me. And this year, Colton is no different. But even worse, Pilot Pete got on my nerves, right? But he meant well and I liked him. I don't believe Colton means well. The fact that just a few years ago, he was stalking and harassing his ex, I don't care what he says and what changes he says that he's made. I don't believe it. And I'm still seeing shades of that behavior in the castle. He's overly aggressive, he's rude, he's defensive, he doesn't take accountability, and he attacks people for no reason. And I also can't help but feel like he's doing this because we've seen him go hard at Tiffany, another woman, and he was stalking his ex. This man has some mess there that he needs to work out with a therapist. But my biggest issue is Michael and Colton should have never been casted on this show. Neither one of them should have been on this show. Neither one. Both of them have a history of inappropriate, offensive, disgusting behavior in recent memory. And their fight between them, I wasn't rooting for either one. Peacock's first mistake was casting two people that have a track record of bad behavior. Michael Rapaport is homophobic, he's racist, he's bigoted, he's misogynistic. And if you're a Bravo fan, unfortunately, we've known that for years because of the times he's even just been on Watch What Happens Live. Colton, just a few years ago, was stalking and harassing his ex. He's never taken appropriate accountability for it. I don't even know why this man is on my screen. These two people should not be here. That is all I felt watching their roundtable fight, is these two people should not even be on this show and on my screen. And that is why that fight between them got so nasty. I definitely believe that Michael was implying that Colton is deceitful because he was in the closet for so long. However, Colton is deceitful. Maybe not because he was closeted, but he is a deceitful person. But I do believe that's what Michael was implying. And I think Michael believes that about any closeted person. So any person that is homosexual and has been in the closet has a right to be offended. Michael absolutely was saying that. That is what he was implying. And it is offensive and it is wrong of him to imply that because many people are forced in the closet. Many people cannot come out, even in 2026. Not let our dislike of Colton cloud our judgment. But Michael wasn't wrong that Colton is deceitful and he's dishonest and he's not a good person. And it takes one to know one. That's all that was. Like, we know that Michael clocked Colton because they have a lot in common. And Colton nor Michael are worth defending. Neither one. But what is worth defending are other people who cannot come out and be themselves and be honest about their sexuality. What is worth defending is the fact that people who are in the closet are not inherently deceitful or distrustful people. We really need to be clear and call that out. But by no means would I ever defend Colton, a stalker, narcissistic abuser, and bigoted Michael Rapaport. Under no circumstances. What Michael Roundtable said is perfectly in line with the viewpoints that he loves to vocalize and has for years. Nothing he said shocked me. I 1000% believe he was implying that Colton is deceitful because he was closeted for years. 1000% believe it at all. But there also is no point in giving Colton the benefit of the doubt that he wasn't a deceitful, harmful person, because what we know about him publicly with his relationship with the woman he met on The Bachelor is that he is a deceitful, nasty person. So watching that Roundtable, normally I love watching fights between two people I don't like. I didn't feel that way because I just felt like this has reminded me of why these two men should not be on this show. They have no business being casted. And I'm happy that Michael is gone. Thank God. It took way too long. And I'm hoping that we get Colton out next, because neither one should be on my TV screen. Competition shows are notorious for exposing people's implicit bias against others, and the Traitors US is no different. And we see this most clearly with the way that Ron is received versus Colton and the treatment of contestants like Portia, Tiffany, and Ron. On this season, we've now seen 2 Black contestants be banished, and Ron, another Black contestant, is on the verge of being banished. Ron, at this point, after just 5 episodes, seems like an outcast and a pariah in the castle to everyone except Stephen Colletti. And it is because he was wrong about Portia. He shared information that he misunderstood or misheard that got Portia banished. However, we have now seen Colton do the same about Tiffany and get her banished. And obviously Colton is not being held to the same standard that Ron is being held to. Colton, an attractive young white man, is still being embraced by the house. He still seems to be very influential, whereas Ron, a Black older man who I do not believe would ever qualify to be a bachelor, who would never meet that standard of attractiveness, is being seen as an outcast for being wrong about Portia. I'm not saying that Ron has behaved perfectly thus far. Ron does not seem like he has any interest in getting to know the people in the castle, and his social game needs work. But I don't know if what we're seeing is Ron's response to how he's being treated, or if this is how he came into the castle behaving. It's unclear. We are seeing him act this way after the way he's been treated, but I'm just not sure if this is a pattern of behavior that started even before he became a social pariah. I do believe if we didn't have the juxtaposition of Colton's treatment versus Ron's, I don't know if I would be as sensitive and bothered by the way Ron is being treated. I do hate to see people be isolated and be mistreated and become outcast, but I'm feeling it on a deeper level because it feels like Colton made the exact same mistake that Ron did, yet Colton is not being held accountable. He's not being questioned about it. People are consoling him about it. And one of the scenes right after the banishment of Tiffany, they're all in the kitchen, and Dorinda even made a comment that where she was essentially forgiving him for his mistake and telling him it was no big deal. And we don't see Ron get that exact same treatment. The other piece is, in this game, even more so than I think in other competition games, once people become suspicious of you, everyone seems to follow the pack because no one wants to be seen as a traitor. So it feels like a lot of people are now hesitant to even get to know Ron or vocalize the perception that maybe Ron actually is a faithful for fear of being viewed as a traitor. Something that's always prevalent on these competition shows where trust is very important and you have to figure out how to trust people very quickly who are strangers to you that are also your competitors is people often trust people who are most similar to themselves. I think this is true for Candiace and Tiffany. I think this is true for Candiace and Monique. And then you see the same thing where Colton seems to have gathered the trust of many people in the castle in a way that Ron has not. And I also believe that Colton's appearance is helping him. Colton is an attractive young white man. He's in shape and he's a lot more palatable than Ron. He's embraced a lot more than Ron, despite the fact that his behavior is worse than Ron's. And Traitors has this inherent distrust where the basic premise is that you're trying to figure out who's deceiving you. So when I think about Colton and his perception of Tiffany, I think Tiffany was probably very unfamiliar to him as a white man who majority of his life he's been closeted and lived as a straight man playing football, American football, and to now be open about his sexuality and being a gay man. I question if Tiffany is so unfamiliar to him. I question if he has spent any significant amount of time with Black women, especially Black women of a certain age. And if that is partially why he did not trust Tiffany, because nothing about Tiffany's behavior seemed that suspicious to me. And we didn't really hear Colton express anything concrete about his suspicions. I just question if Tiffany was so unfamiliar to him that he struggled to trust her, and that is what made him suspicious. And we see this on other reality competition shows. We've seen this on Traitors. We'll continue to see this on Traitors. And when it comes to Ron, from what we see, it does not appear he's playing a great social game now. I don't know how strong his social game was prior to him becoming an outcast and prior to him getting Portia banished. However, I don't like the way he's being treated, and I don't like that it seems like he's an outcast. At this point, just banish him and put him out of his misery, because clearly most of you don't trust him and have no interest in getting to know him. And I don't fault him for having little interest in getting to know them now. Again, I don't know if he came into the castle with that mindset, but at this point, when every day I feel like people are suspicious of me, I don't want to get to know you either. I don't want to share anything with you either. Maybe it wasn't the best idea to express that to Dorinda, but I understand exactly where he's coming from and why he had that reaction. On a lot of competition shows, you do see people and alliances are often made up of people who are the same gender, the same race, the same age. And I think we're going to see the exact same thing on Traitors. And it's unfortunate. It is the downside of watching these shows with this lens. I wish I was naive and ignorant to this, but it is always the most frustrating part. Candiace is playing a way better game on Traitors than I expected. And the one mistake that she's made is serving up Monet to be murdered. And I'm hoping she doesn't repeat that in the future. Overall, I was a little worried about Candiace's mouth. I worried she was going to be too vocal and too aggressive and assertive and people would get suspicious. At this point, we haven't seen anyone vocalize suspicions of Candiace, which is excellent and wonderful. She has struck the right balance of being vocal, but not being too aggressive and too assertive. And she's been very consistent in who she's accused. So she has been very consistent in saying, I believe Ron is a traitor. And that's good because it inspires more trust from other people, because she's not constantly changing her target and her focus. She has consistently said, I believe Ron is a traitor. She knows it's not true, but it's smart to have that strategy. And she's done a very good job of accusing people of being traitors. Something we've seen in multiple seasons, and we've already seen this season, is when you're too quiet, like Donna Kelsey, or you're too calm, like Lisa, and you're not accusing people, people get suspicious. That has been a common thing. We saw the exact same thing with Dan in season 2, where he also wasn't accusatory enough and people became suspicious of him. So Candiace has done this flawlessly. And again, no one at this point after 5 episodes has expressed suspicion of Candiace. And it's good that Candiace has been smart about her accusations, because Colton can be loud and wrong, but Candiace as a Black woman cannot. She would never be able to avoid scrutiny and paranoia and suspicion if she was loud and wrong the way that Colton is. She has to move a little smarter than that. So I'm very impressed with her gameplay. However, I worry that she's not thinking enough about herself and her own endgame, and she's maybe thinking too much about playing with the traitors. I like that this season the traitors are loyal to one another, but traitors cannot be your only allies that you're loyal to. Monet obviously trusted Candiace, hence why Monet shared her suspicions, and Candiace in turn told Lisa, which then ended up leading to Monet's murder. Monet could have been a good ally for Candiace. Obviously, Monet was not suspicious of Candiace. So allowing one of your allies to go out of the door was not the best move. It wasn't smart. And I worry that she's not thinking enough about herself and playing in a self-interested way. And she's thinking too much about going to the end with the 2 traitors. Watching Candiace on Potomac, I see this very clearly. Say what you want about Candiace, but she's never struck me as a selfish person. She seems to have a really good heart and to be very genuine. And that could be her downfall with Lisa and Rob, because Lisa and Rob may work to protect their faithful allies and then willingly murder any of Candiace's. And Candiace may agree to that, thinking my only allies are the 2 of you, and that's not true. So I hope that Candiace starts to recognize her allyships with faithfuls and the importance of those allyships and works to protect them. And since Lisa and Candiace and Rob murdered my girl Monet, I now only have Candiace to root for. So I'm really hoping that she starts to recognize the value of faithful alliances and starts to prioritize and protect them. I said after episode 3 of The Traitors that Lisa Rinna's behavior will be suspicious to anybody that is familiar with her when she was on Real Housewives and anyone that is familiar with her public image, because Lisa Rinna is not this cool, calm, and collected. Those are not words I would use for Lisa Rinna. I would use extroverted, outgoing, loud, aggressive, chaotic. Those are words I would use, but we haven't got any of that this season on the Traitors. And Colton in episode 5 clocked it, and he's right. And I wonder if that's also the reason why Monet was suspicious of Lisa. Of the 3 traitors, I believe Lisa is playing the worst game of the 3, not just because 2 people have already been suspicious of her, but because her behavior is so unnatural. So every day she has to show up and act. And yes, she's an actress, so it should come easy. But sometimes you need to act intuitively in these situations. The real Lisa is way more extroverted and outgoing. She's way more assertive and outspoken. If Lisa was not a traitor, Lisa would be accusing somebody new every day of being a traitor. Like, Lisa as a faithful would be so accusatory. And that's what I thought Candiace would struggle with, but she's done a good job. Lisa, we haven't seen her accuse anybody, and that's not Lisa. Lisa asked one of her castmates on Housewives, were people doing coke in your bathroom? That's Lisa. That's Lisa's personality. So if you're familiar with her, you're going to be suspicious. So Colton is probably familiar. I would bet he's seen her on Real Housewives. Monet hasn't because she doesn't watch Real Housewives. But if you are at all familiar with Lisa, you would clock that something's off with her. And it makes me wonder about Michael Rappaport. He's a well-known Bravo Real Housewives stan. And I'm sure he's seen Lisa on Beverly Hills. So I wonder what he thought about Lisa's gameplay. We never got a chance to hear if he had any suspicions, but I think that's Lisa's problem. Lisa, she needs to start accusing people. Lisa is not acting like herself. She's too quiet. She's too introverted. That's not normal Lisa. Because she's being so quiet and she's not being as outgoing, does she have any other allies? Like, I think I would count Dorinda as an ally from what we're seeing. I don't know how close that relationship is, but I don't know if she's made any other connections with other people in the castle who would vouch for her. I believe that the way to avoid a banishment is you have to walk into the round table with allies. Once people say your name in there, if people are unsure about you, it is so easy for the person saying your name to sway the group. So for Lisa, she definitely needs to live more into the chaotic Lisa energy. We haven't seen the girl dance at all. She's not that talkative. She's not accusing anybody. She's not running around being suspicious. And Lisa needs to make more connections and friendships in that castle if she wants to survive. Who would have thought that Rob from Love Island would be in the best position amongst the 3 traitors to go to the end and to be playing such a good game as a traitor? It has shocked me. I never guessed this. I never thought that his personality and approach would work so well in this game. But Rob has taken more of a backseat approach, especially amongst the 2 traitors. Thus far, we haven't seen him be as vocal and deterred about who to get rid of. He seems to be okay with whatever decisions Lisa and Candiace makes. He doesn't seem to be playing the game hard and aggressive and full of strategy. He seems to just be going along, getting to know people, having fun, but he is quietly building alliances. He does seem to have a good relationship with many of the men in the castle. He does seem to have a good relationship with Maura, and he has a good relationship with Lisa and Candiace. So he's in a position where he has multiple people who trust him and would probably protect him, and also would never throw out his name as a traitor. I love that he actually is prioritizing the allies with the traitors the same way Lisa and Candiace are. What has been different? Certainly a trend with a lot of the men like Dan and Boston Rob, who it felt like their focus was figuring out when is the best time to throw my fellow traitor under the bus, where it feels like Rob is not thinking about that. And Rob's focus is, how long can I keep this alliance together? He actually does seem concerned about Lisa and Candiace being banished the same way that Lisa and Candiace seem concerned for the other 2. And he's, instead of thinking so much about when do I throw my allies and my fellow traitors under the bus, his focus is, how do I maintain this alliance? How do I maintain this relationship? How do we make sure it's smooth? What is the best approach? But he's not being overly strategic about it. However, the one question I have is, has he accused anyone of being a traitor? He doesn't seem to be as accusatory as a lot of other people. Even Candiace has accused Ron. I don't recall hearing Rob accuse anybody publicly. So I do wonder if he's getting away with that and flying under the radar because he has relationships with multiple people in the castle now. So Rob is playing a quiet, smart, low-key game, and it's working in his advantage. He's not trying to play anything overly complicated or sophisticated. He's not overthinking things, and he does seem to be more focused on enjoying himself, connecting with people. And Rob also seems to recognize, especially when it comes to who to murder amongst the traitors, that as long as someone goes home, It's good for him. He doesn't seem like he's overly concerned about who Candiace and Lisa want to choose, as long as it's someone that gets him closer to the end. And I do believe that is the best strategy at this point in the game. Instead of being so focused on who to send home and being very particular, just send someone home and let the chips fall where they may. If I was a traitor, a big part of my strategy would be keeping faithfuls in the castle that others are suspicious of to deflect suspicion from me. So when I think about the situation with Ron, where it seems like the majority of the castle has decided Ron's a traitor, I would feel very incentivized if I was Candiace, Lisa, and Rob to keep Ron, because it keeps suspicion away from me. I feel the same way about Michael. Disgusting person, happy he's gone, but if I'm a traitor, I like that he's there and he's getting attention and diverting attention from me and the fact that I'm a traitor, because people are so focused on him. When I think about Colton and Lisa, so Colton is now suspicious of Lisa. That's problematic because Colton is very vocal and influential. However, Colton stirs up a lot of drama, conversation back and forth in the castle. So if I'm Candiace and Rob, I don't really want to murder Colton, because I like the fact that Colton is constantly a distraction from people talking about me, especially if Colton is not suspicious of me. If I'm Candiace and I don't have an alliance with Colton and I'm not too worried about him coming after me, I like having Colton there, just like I like having Ron there, because they're a distraction. And now that Kristen expressed to Candiace she's suspicious of Colton, that's even further evidence of why keeping Colton in there is great, because it throws people off of your scent. So I'm very curious to see if over this season, we'll see the traitors start to look at people that way, as they are good to divert attention from me, especially if this person is focused on others and not myself. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm very interested to hear what you thought about this episode, but also your thoughts about any strategies you think faithfuls or traitors should be implementing that they don't. I do still believe a lot of this game comes down to luck. I will always articulate that. And a lot of it, unfortunately, comes down to other people's bias against you or for you in the castle. But you can strategize. I mean, there is a way to figure out the best way to navigate this game and win. So I'm very interested to hear if any of you have any good strategies that you've seen done on the traitors, because there's other versions beyond the US version. So maybe you've seen this on the UK or Australia traitors, but also if you have any theories about what a traitor or faithful should do to make it to the end. Thanks for watching my review of The Traitors Season 4. That was episode 4 and 5. I have thoroughly enjoyed this season. The first 2 episodes started off a little slow to me because there were so many unfamiliar faces. But now after the 4th and 5th episode, I'm enjoying it. It's giving us the drama, the humor, a little bit of the strategy, but also just the weird and crazy interactions that you get when you bring together such a random group of people. And I will be reviewing the season of The Traitor, so please subscribe to me if you want to see those reviews. And also you can give me a follow on TikTok, where I do post more daily content related to Real Housewives and other reality TV shows.